Welcome to RSM's CEO to CEO video series, Leading the Real Economy. I'm Joe Adams, Managing Partner of RSM US, and I'm talking to fellow leaders about guiding our companies through the pandemic and beyond. I'm joined today by Brian Murray, CEO of Ryan Companies, a real estate design, development, and construction company headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Thanks for joining us today, Brian.
Joe, thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here. You know, we were deemed essential as a construction and a real estate management company, so we were fortunate through this whole period of time to continue to be able to work on all of our construction sites and in all the properties that we manage all over the country. And we made a swift action for all of our employees that could work from home to go and work from home right around St. Patrick's Day. And up until June 1st, that has been how we've been operating since. And so it took quite a while for us to get adjusted, particularly for our construction teams on our job sites. You know, it was scary in those first couple of weeks there as the uncertainty about what COVID was all about and the new protocols that we had to put in place really fast, and especially for some clients that were really demanding on what those might be, to be able to put protocols in place with, sometimes a couple hundred construction workers on a project site and making sure that we were safe and continuing to operate. But that was really vital for our business as we move forward into at the time back on April 1st, really uncertain times.
So what were some of those protocols that you had to employ at that time, Brian?
You know, on our construction sites, construction by nature is very safe. We're wearing safety glasses, we wear gloves. So the social distancing is pretty much the norm for a lot of the workers within a construction site, but there are certain jobs that workers need to get within 6 feet of one another. So having to wear face masks was something early on that became something some of our clients demanded for all of our workers. And that's probably been the one thing on our construction sites been the hardest, especially if you think about our southern states where they're not working in 100 to 120 degrees and you got this face mask on with safety glasses on that fog up the whole time you're wearing them. And so it's almost an anti-safety prevention thing that takes place by having to wear this face mask. And so they've been, really good. Our workers are committed to what they have to do. The screening coming onto the job sites and asking the 5 key questions before workers get on the job site. And then, really being vigilant about making sure that if there is someone that has been in contact that we can isolate and we know all the workers that were in that particular part of the project, that we can have them quarantined for 14 days and hopefully still be able to keep the project running and construction continuing.
Did you have many instances of employees getting the virus?
We've been fortunate. We have about 1,600 team members across the country, and we have less than 24 so far that have been positive for COVID-19. And fortunately, all of them have recovered. If you think about most of our construction projects, though, our team members comprise, less than 5% of the total number of workers on a project site. So you have a lot of different subcontractors that have all of their team members working there as well. And so their protocols coming into this were not as great as ours, and we had to get them up to speed with our protocols, as well as their process of ensuring that screening was happening. But for the most part, we have a great group of partners that we've worked with, and roll the clock forward 90 days, we only have one project where we've actually had to have a complete shutdown of the project for any more than 3 days, and that one was about 14.
And have you been able to avoid any layoffs then?
We have. We've not had any layoffs that were nothing that would have been out of the ordinary, just in terms of employee evaluations, et cetera. But no layoffs we've had so far. In fact, we've had to add employees because our volume, as I mentioned, has grown by 10% since April 1st for the full year of 2020. So our challenge is trying to continue to recruit enough construction talent into the company to continue to be able to execute on the work that we've got. Now, the one other challenge that we've had through this whole period of time, and I think there's other companies that have, factories workers versus office workers, is a third of our employees are on our construction sites or doing our property management, and they've had to go to the project site or to the offices every single day throughout this, while 2/3 of our employees were able to work from home. employees have migrated to WebExes and Zooms, and I think there was early great enthusiasm with virtual happy hours and games that would take place at 4 o'clock to try to engage people, and some of that has waned over time. Fortunately, for the half of our country that's in the north, we have summer upon us where we can enjoy evenings and being outside. That has helped, I think, in terms of this social distancing that we've had to do in the workplace. But from a cultural perspective, it's something that I worry about as we journey forward. I mean, I do believe that there's going to be a change in the workforce and a change in our workforce. Well, there will be more people working from home on a long-term basis. We hired a new general counsel. She started 2 weeks after we worked from home. So she's yet to be in the office except for with 5 people. And what she shared with me was something I hadn't thought about, is by being on all these WebExes where people's names are below their picture, that when we do go back in, she's going to have an immediate ability to be able to put a name with a face, unlike having to greet people face to face and try to remember the names. So there's a little silver lining in that.
You also operate throughout the country, and of course the regulations, the laws, et cetera, some of the monitoring of the different states and locations that you were in. I'm sure that added to some of the complexity of trying to navigate your way through this.
We mobilized a task force probably March 1st, so 2 weeks before we actually had all of our office employees work from home. And they put in place a protocol to be able to monitor actions by all the states where we're building. And if I think about those first 2 or 3 weeks, California was the very first state to go into a shutdown. And the immediate time when they made the shutdown, California was unique where construction wasn't deemed essential at day one. And so we had to wait a couple of days for some clarifications to come out, in which case our projects actually were shut down for 2 to 3 days in California. You roll the clock forward, then after California, I forget who the second state was that decided to do, the shutdown and stay at home. And we'd already been through it in California, so that one became easier. And by the time it had rolled through the entire nation, we had really good structure and protocol in place that we knew how to migrate forward to new processes on the job site. I think it was several of our significant customers that have really put protocols in place that don't exist on all of our projects. Some of our clients are mandating that face coverings be worn on the entire project site, even when there's significant space between construction workers. And being able to educate our team workers and all of our subcontractors on those protocols and to monitor it and to police it. We've actually had to have dedicated people going around the project sites to make certain that the workers are continuing to do this, because it's really uncomfortable if you think about being out in the elements and having the additional face covering on top of everything else that you're wearing for protective gear on a project site.
I'm sure that even though you were able to operate, certainly there had to be concerns about your business and liquidity and costs and some of the challenges that could be out in front of you, and just wondering how you maneuvered your way through that and what specific actions you took around that.
Yeah, we took a number of actions, and I think about those last 2 weeks of March as all the news of COVID started hitting, and I talked to other peers and other businesses and peers within our industry, and no one really knew what the next 6 to 9 months were going to bring. And in our business, we didn't know whether we'd be able to continue to build, if states would shut down everything, in which case we would have no revenue coming in. And so we immediately drew down on all of our lines of credit on a proactive fashion. It wasn't that we needed the cash. We just were uncertain about what would happen with liquidity within the banks. We took an immediate action to halt all discretionary spending throughout the company. Our senior leaders took salary reductions effective April 1st on a preemptive, proactive basis, with the full intention that should we wind up 90 days later not needing them, that we would have at least had those cash preservation measures in place. We migrated from a monthly cash flow forecasting process to a weekly cash flow forecasting process. And in our business, as you alluded to in the beginning, we're a full-service real estate firm that has in-house design, development, construction, real estate management, and capital markets. And so, 40% of what we do are development projects where we have to rely upon capital markets to be able to be continuing to invest in our projects moving forward. And there's a significant amount of pursuit dollars that are spent on the front end of our projects. And we immediately took a look at all of the projects that we were chasing and really took a hard look at all the spend that we had planned over the next 6 months to think about what we could do to delay it, to change it, to renegotiate some of our contracts with landowners, with some of our potential companies that we were building build-to-suits for. And in most cases, every other company was out there with uncertainty as well. And so fortunately, you roll the clock ahead 90 days. We have weathered this storm well, and up until now, our construction volume has continued to grow this year from where we were at April 1st, such that we're going to be, up significantly from last year into 2020. And so we actually just undid all of the actions, except for the curbing of our discretionary spending. We restored our 401k match, and we restored our salaries for all the employees that took those proactive reductions. But keeping the discretionary spending in place, which COVID helps a lot of that, because people aren't on airplanes, they're not entertaining, they're not doing a lot of spending, that will really help us to continue to ensure we've got good, solid liquidity going forward. And that we repaid back all of our lines of credit after about 45 days, realizing that the banks were going to be there. They weren't in the same spot they were back in 2008 or 9. And we knew that we could be able to have the ability to draw on them should we need it down the road.
I understand you have you purchased some land, I think, in the old Ford plant, and you have some plans for developing that property. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is an amazing site. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, this is about 120 acres of land located exactly between the heart of downtown St. Paul and downtown Minneapolis, adjacent to a neighborhood community where the people that live there don't leave for generations. It's called the Highland Park part of St. Paul. And the Ford company was building cars there for many, many decades. And we bought the land in December and began in earnest the site work on that site before the planning before COVID started, but we have been doing site work there. And it's going to be a 10-year development, but really a transformational piece of property in the backyard of our headquarters in the Twin Cities here, where we're going to be able to create new living places for over 3,500 people. There's going to be single-family homes that are on the Mississippi River that the property faces. There's going to be row homes that are more affordable than the homes that exist in that neighborhood. A huge amount of multifamily and apartments, senior living, affordable housing, retail, places for people to live, work, and play, an incredible feature of a water and green space going down the middle of the park. And it's going to be a 10-year project that is really fired up our team members, where we can bring the whole suite of services we have, from our architecture and our civil engineers that are working really in earnest now of getting the site ready so that we can begin some construction here soon. But we're really excited and honored that the city of St. Paul chose us to be the development partner for this. And it's something that is going to be a differentiator for many of our employees' careers that they're going to look back on over the course of the last decade of really having impact on something that is really amazing. And sites like that in urban America just don't exist. So it's really a neat opportunity.
So your business, as you say, it's multifaceted. Were there any particular areas that were more impacted than others? And what types of things are you looking at now in terms of trying to read the tea leaves on what's happening next? And what indications do you look at to see how your business may be affected going forward?
As I mentioned, we assembled this COVID task force on March 1st, which was probably 20 of our senior leaders, cross-functional, that really was focused, I'll call it, on the defensive. How do we get ourselves ready for COVID-19 financially, on our job sites, technology, and everything around that? And after about a month in, towards the end of April, we realized that we really needed to put a team together on the offensive side, and we called it Ryan Forward. And another group of about 13 of our leaders has spent the last 8 weeks putting together economic indicators that are the combination of macroeconomic indicators, a lot of which maybe have no bearing on our business, yet give us a lens into what many other companies are seeing in the marketplace. But then another layer of indicators that we've went to our top 50 customers, and it's been really wonderful. We've shared our business with them, our outlook, and they've done the same. and really giving us an outlook of where they see their revenues, their employee growth going over the course of the next 6 to 18 months. And we're using that as an indicator in addition to the macroeconomic indicators, and then more specific real estate economic information that does exist out there for us to do as good as we can to have a crystal ball in terms of what's the outlook going to look like. Is this going to be a V curve, a U curve, a prolonged curve, something in between there? I think our business is a bit unique in the sense that, our average project is probably 15 months in duration, and there's a 6 to 8 month gestation period before we even break ground. And so a lot of our revenues are certain for a long period of time. So unlike retail and many other businesses that have monthly and daily sales, for us, we didn't see any sort of blip at all in our revenues looking forward. But we just had rolled out in January our new 5-year strategic vision. We call it Thrive 25. And part of what the Ryan Forward team did is to not assume that the strategies that we rolled out in January before COVID hit still were the right strategy. So they also looked at all of those, and some of those we're going to accelerate, some of which we might table for a period of time because COVID has brought in new dynamics. There's a couple new things that we're going to take a look at for what we think the world might look like post-COVID that we're going to bring into bear.
So speaking to that, when you think about the impact of the pandemic on the future, what types of things, fundamental change do you see in the way Ryan Companies does business going forward?
There's some sectors that we've focused on starting back in 2011 and then reemphasized in our 5-year strategic plan that just ended at the end of 19. Distribution centers and senior living were two sectors that we really emphasized back then, and those two sectors have been really strong. Our distribution business is the biggest business that we've got, and as companies are looking at last miles and have been even before COVID and now even on a more accelerated fashion, we can't keep up with the pursuits that are coming in the door. It's exciting, and it's something that was a strategy that we put in place that we hoped would help us weather an economic downturn. And I think we're experiencing that now, where we're being buoyed by making that investment in that space. Senior living is another space that we really began in earnest in 2015. And it's a space that we think has got several decades in front of us. Unfortunately, I think, COVID-19 with the 20% unemployment, there's going to be people that are going to be unable to buy homes, and there's going to be a continued demand for apartments and for multifamily properties, of which we have a real strength in being able to build and develop on a go-forward basis. So really being experts is something that Ryan is all about, and bringing the breadth of design experts in those sectors, as well as construction development, and then having relationships with capital that we can be able to be swift and nimble to meet our customers' demands.
So when you reflect on how the company has really endured over the last pandemic period, what would you say you're most proud of?
I would say I'm most proud of how 1,600 team members mobilized with their world getting turned upside down. I'm incredibly proud of our construction teams that are on the job sites and our maintenance engineers that have been in our buildings since St. Patrick's Day through all the uncertainty of COVID and just leaned into it every single day. Many of our construction field team that are out of town, they decided not to return home for a month to see their loved ones for fear of bringing COVID back. And you just think about that sacrifice that they made for our business and for our customers. It's frontline in our business, similar to what healthcare workers are doing, similar to what first responders, et cetera, are doing for the greater society. And I'm really proud of those workers within Ryan. I mean, they go above and beyond every single day. And then I'm proud of our office teams that have found ways to work from home, especially those that have younger families that were doing homeschooling and trying to keep their jobs going. And, the start and stop of a workday doesn't exist anymore. It's just one big blur from when it starts and stops. And then you throw the racial unrest that we've been at the epicenter here in Minneapolis since Memorial Day. On top of that, there's an awful lot that has been going on. And, we have a team that has just rallied behind that. We've engaged in listening sessions since the middle part of June to talk about racism in the United States and what we're going to do with it individually, what we're going to do with it as a company, and the actions that we've got to take to change the trajectory that exists in the world today. And we have team members that are embracing all of that. They're embracing what we've got to do with COVID. They signed up for salary reductions on April 1st, the senior leaders. Our employees, accepted the 401k match being suspended, knowing that we were doing it to try to preserve cash and preserve jobs along the way. And last week, they were thrilled when we shared the news with them that we were repaying all of that back, and yet still being cautious going forward with our spending until we really have a better sense of 2021. And we have team members that come to Ryan every single day with a smile on their face and want to create places for people to thrive.
So Brian, just really do appreciate the time you spent with us hearing about Ryan Companies, a great company, great contribution to the community, and certainly all the employees there. Wish you all the best. Be well and be safe. Thank you very much. And thank you to our viewers for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our chat with Brian as much as I did. On behalf of Brian Murray, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.